r/Nosleep. Posted by you/dark and creepy. I disappear the same week every year, and I'm terrified of where I go. Part 2. To continue from where I last left off after waking up from the nightmare of seeing the little boy's terrified face. I was sweating profusely and a part of me wondered if what happened was real or just a dream, but that was the first and only time I had ever had a dream during that week. Plus this one was too realistic to be fake. I questioned everything about me while looking over my missed messages on my phone, and I wanted to cry when I read one that asked, "How were the California beaches? I can't wait to hear from you." I wiped the tears from my eyes, wishing that I could have actually been there instead of having to Photoshop myself into other people's photos off the internet. It was like pretending to live someone else's life while hiding a dark secret that had just turned 1,000 times darker. In the back of my head, I knew what I had to do next. So quickly I got dressed and ran to my computer and looked up the description of the boy and put the word missing at the end and hit search. My heart sunk to the deepest part of my body when I saw the smiling face of the freckled-faced boy attached with a link. He was a missing person who disappeared 3 days ago while on a weekend camping trip with his family in State Park Wilderness located in a bordering state to mine. It occurred in the exact same week I disappeared and my hands were shaking. I read on and noticed that they believe the boy wandered off and is currently missing in the woods and do not believe it was an abduction. They currently have search and rescue looking for him, and the idea of calling them up and telling them what I saw crossed my mind. But the sane part of me brushed that to the side because they would never believe me in the first place, and it would be self-incriminating telling them that I saw myself carrying the boy while crawling up a cliff with one hand. It sounds insane to me, and that's why I feel insane, because it's hard to tell the difference between what's real and what's not. It was after this event that I reinvested trying to find some cure for this disease, or at least some answers. My first thoughts went back to the small country town I had drove through up to my backpacking trip that started this whole thing. The old man acted so strange when I played music, as if it was wrong in some way. Maybe that linked back to the music I heard from the piano? I had to talk to him about it, but there was no way I could because their town was hundreds of miles away from my own home and I had no more vacation days I could afford to lose. So I went on living my life wondering what else I could do instead, and I thought about maybe having someone there when I blacked out to make sure I didn't go anywhere, and if I did then they would believe me from that point on. So I called my friend Jack after waiting a year, and he agreed to be there at the house when I would disappear. He seemed nervous and curious at the same time when he pulled up. We put in a horror movie because Jack said it would be the only thing scary he'd see all night. Meaning that he didn't believe me one bit when I told him the whole story. I don't blame him because I wouldn't believe myself either. Anyway, it was about halfway through the movie when a drop of blood dripped from the tip of my nose. It landed on my lap and my heart started to race, knowing what would follow. I looked over to Jack and he must have remembered when I told him that a bloody nose was the first sign because his face turned to a white stone. I remember seeing his arms trying to catch me while I watched his blurry black and white silhouette try to help me. It would be the last time I would ever see him. This part is hard for me to write, but when I woke up clean in my bed the first thing I did was call Jack, but there was no answer. I looked around my house to see if there was any clues as to what happened until I noticed that his car was still in the driveway, but on closer inspection I saw a yellow police tape barrier surrounding his car and my house. I opened the door and heard a neighbor mowing grass. They looked at me with their jaw dropped and immediately called the police before bombarding me with questions. Long story short, I was taken into custody for questioning, which was useless because I had no answers to supply them with. They knew as much as I did involving the situation of me disappearing, but it wasn't until they told me that Jack too was missing that reality sunk in. I realized how suspicious I seemed with me being the last person he was seen with, and I can't answer any of their questions of what happened. I held back my tears with all of the strength I could muster, but I was so close to bursting out crying in front of the officers questioning me. I wondered if I hurt Jack after blacking out and turning into that thing that no words can explain. I never should have asked him to help me with this because I might have just lost one of my closest friends. They put me under arrest until they found out more information, and I was their #1 suspect with no alibi and really no hope. They let me call my parents and I told them everything, but they didn't believe me. With no one on my side to back me up and a faulty memory, I had no chance of escaping jail time. I never went to jail though, but rather an asylum, because they put me through so many series of lie detector tests and it proved that I truly believed what I was saying. They also never found Jack's body, as if he just vanished into thin air. After this I lost all the rest of my friends and my family visited me less and less after every month until it was almost a year. Almost the time I would disappear again, and I wanted to so badly. Just to prove to everyone that I was not insane and that this really was happening to me, but I'll go into depth of what happened then in my next post. But you can already tell by how I'm currently writing this that I didn't stay there for the rest of my life. To continue from the last post, it was nearing the time of when the beast in me would finally come out, or at least that's what I call it, even though 95% of the time I'm completely unconscious during it. I prefer to be unconscious rather than seeing the atrocities I was committing. It's still hard for me to shake the petrified look of the boy in that glimpse I did see while the beast inside was climbing the cliff. Especially now that search and rescue found the body tucked away in a little crevice along the side of a sheer cliff. It was an impossible climb for someone without the proper equipment. They have no idea on how the boy's body got there and speculate that some sort of animal had dragged him up there because that's the only logical thing they could come up with. They'll never know how or who put him there, but I will. I will until the day that I die, and this dreadful curse will be lifted from me, but until then I'm still very much a threat to any living being. Anyway, when the night finally came when I would get my answer of what happened when I would black out here. Would I tear down the door and kill everyone in sight, or would I magically teleport out of there because aliens were involved with this the whole damn time? While I was pondering it, I saw a drop of blood land on the white sheets I was laying in. It was a pretty bold color, and I laid there waiting to black out and face the consequences later. But my vision never turned blurry or black and white. Astonished and confused, I wondered if the curse was broken, so I sat up in my bed, and that's when I heard the door open with a creak. It was currently locked, and it didn't seem to be opened by any staff members as no one walked through the door. That's when I heard soft piano music playing, almost as if it was beckoning me to follow it. Not knowing what to do, but also not caring about my own safety anymore because my life would never be like it once was, so I followed it into the hallway. Stepping out into the hall, I heard the music sway left while another door opened. I was about to turn the corner when I saw one of orderlies standing in the middle of the hallway. I thought he was going to escort me back to my room, but he didn't move at all, with his eyes were just fixated on the floor. I would have used to think that was weird, but at this point that was pretty tame compared to what I've seen. So ignoring him while continuing to follow the music, I walked through the door that had previously creaked open, and it led outside to the courtyard area. That's the moment when the blurred vision hit me and I blacked out, only to wake up in my original bed at my house that my parents had sold. The new owners luckily weren't there at the time of me waking up, so I quickly snuck out after getting dressed. I wondered if I should head over to my parents' house, but knew in the back of my head that they would yell at me for breaking out of the asylum and would just take me back. Even though that was the last place I would ever want to go. I wasn't insane, but maybe I am. Maybe I really am losing it. Even writing this years later, I'm still asking myself that question. So anyway, while I was walking along the side of the street in the neighborhood trying to figure out where to go, I heard piano music being played and my heart rate went through the roof. I fell to my knees while covering my ears and started crying hysterically. That's when it suddenly stopped and I heard a house door open. A middle-aged lady stood in the doorway and asked, "Are you okay?" I was teaching my daughter how to play the piano and heard someone crying out here. Quickly I wiped away the tears from my face and kept on walking while saying, "I'm fine." That's when it hit me, and immediately I knew where I needed to go. It would take a ton of walking and hitchhiking, but it's where I would fit in. So I found my way back to that small country town, and when I came walking up all disgruntled and dirty, one of the nice old ladies offered to feed me dinner and give me a place to rest my head. I agreed, and while sitting at the table slurping some soup she said, "I know why you're here?" "Really?" I asked, confused. "It's not every day we get someone like you, but it's also to be expected. It's been a while since we had another person join the pack, as you can tell. That's why everyone here is so old," she said with an eerie smile. "What are you talking about?" I asked while I stopped eating. "I can tell by the look in your eyes you've touched the piano." I sat silent, not knowing what to say, as she continued, "You're just like everyone else in this little town. They've all encountered it and have all gone through the same torment. You've touched it too." I screamed, "Is there a cure or a way to stop it?" She laughed before saying, "If you're hoping to get a cure for this, then you better give up. We've all tried before to cure it in different ways, such as trying to refine the piano, but it's never in the same place twice. If we could cure it, then we wouldn't stay here, but as you see, we are still here. We're like the leopards talked about in the Bible, who were kicked out of society because of their disease. Like them, it would take a miracle for us to be cured. However, the world doesn't know about us, and even if they did, they would never believe it was true, so we are safe here." I was shocked hearing this to the point I couldn't respond, but inside it felt right. I felt like I belonged and am accepted instead of locked away and called insane. That's the thing about those monsters in the woods that you hear stories about. They do exist, but people don't come across them all the time because they aren't out there all the time. Instead, they could be the person living across the street from you, or even someone you know. Who knows about that small country town you cross while heading up to the mountains, because for all you know they could be in it. Like I said before, it's been 19 years since this yearly disappearance started happening to me, and I still got life to live. So if you ever happen to be in the woods during the month of July, I would be careful, because one of those weeks I'll be out there. But it won't be me.